Richard's in Maidenhead. Richard, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. I just want to say I agree with you to a point, and I think any reasonable person knows that most Muslims have absolutely no part in this, and that, it is a real a fundamental and a very, very minority group who are doing this. But I think an apology is needed. You said before that if a Geordie person was doing this, should all Geordies issue an apology, and that was kind of a little bit ridiculous. But
why? Why is it any different? Why should Abbas, the last caller, apologise for what these murderers in Paris did?
Well, because I think the alternative is that there is no apology.
Have you apologised yet?
Apologise for what?
The murders in France on Wednesday.
Why would I need to apologise for that?
Well, why does Abbas? He was in Berkshire.
Well, no, because they're doing it in the name of Islam. If something was done...
Not his Islam. They might have been doing it in the name of Richard's. Wouldn't mean it was about you.
I know, but the...
So why haven't you apologised? You can do it now if you want.
No, there has to be some... These people are committing acts of terror in the name of Islam.
Not in the name of his Islam.
I know, and I do understand that.
So if I went and blew somebody up now and said I'm doing it in the name of Richards everywhere, you would feel you had to apologise?
First of all, let me say they are talking, I presume, about the Charlie Hebdo attacks in Paris, but this video doesn't actually say that. And it could be any number of other Muslim attacks because, let's face it, if there wasn't one last month, there'll be one next month. And in fact, there are constantly Muslim attacks going around all over the world.
If that wasn't the shoe bomber called Richard Reed, have you apologised for him yet?
You're making it a bit ridiculous.
No, you are.
I'm really not. They're just...
OK, well, tell me why you haven't apologised for the shoe bomber whose name was Richard, because Abbas has to apologise for a terrorist who said he was a Muslim.
This caller goes on and on like this with the host on this call-in show repeatedly saying things like, well, why don't you apologize for what the Muslims did? Apologize for what Richard, the shoe bomber, did. And I thought about this. Poor Richard here on this show doesn't come up with a really good response, but I would like to come up with one for him. If there were a few million, or say a billion or more, Richards in the world, and if 1,300 years ago a guy named Richard wrote a book called The Book of Richards and says we need to slaughter everyone who's not a Richard, compel them to live under the law of Richard, and they had repeatedly lived in the most oppressive totalitarian societies on the planet, barring Nazism and communism, and even worse than that in some cases. In fact, if they had the same kind of anti-Jewish disposition that the Nazis did, and if they were on a regular basis committing acts of terror and oppression and slaughter throughout the world, then yeah, I suppose I'd probably be as afraid of people named Richard as I am afraid of Muslims. Now, I will acknowledge at this point they're asking for an apology, and I don't think apology is exactly what the Muslim community as a whole should do, but rather reiterate their opposition, their condemnation of this kind of terrorist attack. I don't think that's asking too much.
Take all the time you want, mate.
Okay, so these guys are from the Islamic community.
Yes, and the shoe bomber was from the community of people called Richard.
And the community of Richard, of course, has a 1,300-year record of oppression and murdering people who don't agree with him, right?
We need to feel some sense that that there's some action in the Islamic community.
But I don't trust people called Richard anymore, so when are you going to apologise?
It's a bit difficult to argue against you when you're being like this. I'm just trying to make a point that these people are from the Islamic community, and there needs to be a sense that...
What does that even mean? Well, what does the Islamic community mean?
The Islamic community is the Muslims, the people who are following the same Quran, the same religion as the mass murdering terrorist in the Middle East, on 9/11, throughout the world, wherever Muslims go. And we'd like an assurance that the rest of the Muslim community is not going to do like they have been doing in my entire lifetime.
You don't understand what Islam is, what the Islamic community is.
Well, I know that Sunni and Shia kill each other every single day in this country on a scale that is nowhere close to what happened in France. So what do you mean by the community? You think they're on the same side, do you, those people killing each other in Syria at the moment?
No.
So what's the Islamic community?
The Islamic community in this country.
It's just everybody who has the word Islam on their religious affiliations, even if they actually hold murderous intent towards each other, which is bringing us back to Richard. Everyone who's got Richard on their passport is part of the Richard community. You're allowed to admit you've made a mistake, my friend.
No, I'm not going to admit that I've made a mistake. There needs to be a sense that we as a country...
I'm going to interrupt you there, Richard, which I think some might consider an act of mercy.
I wonder if there was a rise of fascism and Nazism in Europe, and if they had repeatedly attacked, killed, and slaughtered as many people as the Muslims have in the name of their ideology, if these same people would be sitting back saying, don't worry, don't be prejudiced, don't condemn people, there's nothing to worry about, everything's going to be all right.